This video, filmed from Spoons in Soho, is going to take a look at every single EFL transfer that's been completed so far in the very nascent and youthful EFL Transfer Window, summer 2025. George and I are going to be picking out our 10 favourite transfers done from Championship, League One and League Two, all covered here. In the Championship, so far, mostly we've just had loan deals being made permanent and things of that nature. So Birmingham ×2. Alphonse Samsted, who played a bit part role in their promotion from League One last season, has had his move from FC Twente made permanent. Very popular member of the squad, and the goal that he scored against Burton lives long in the memory, but has some work to do to dislodge Ethan Laird, I think, as Birmingham's starting right back. Phil Neumann is someone that I think we're both quite interested in. He comes in from Hanover. The deal was done in January, but he joins up ahead of the Championship campaign. From what I can tell, Neumann, who's not a player that I know a lot about, is in the sort of outside centre-back, overlapping centre-back mould. I imagine he'll be comfortable in a more reserved full-back kind of role if they want to play him on that side as well, but should add quite a lot to their defensive depth. Birmingham with 2 deals done already. Yu Hirakawa of Bristol City, the wide player who had a decent first crack at English football, I think it's fair to say, and made a decent contribution to Bristol City's very, very strong season. He signs permanently as well, and would expect him to kick on in his second season. And the same for Gustavo Puerta of Hull City, the young Colombian midfielder who, again, came in with quite a big reputation, but with very little senior football under his belt. I think to have contributed in the way that he did, albeit to a disappointing Hull City campaign, in a number of different midfield roles, was quite impressive. So I'm looking forward to seeing how Puerta does next season, whoever's in charge of Hull City. I'm really excited about Jacob Wright, the Norwich City midfielder, who has just been signed from Manchester City. He spent the second half of the season on loan. These were his first steps in senior football, a very highly rated PL2, Manchester City, defensive midfielder, technical, classy, all that sort of stuff. Then you've got to start Championship games, and the world changes for players like Jacob Wright. But he actually stepped up really, really well. And I think we saw that all of the hype around his ball-playing ability, the fact that he can set the tempo at the base of midfield, that he knows when to go long and short, his pass appreciation is sensational, whether he's playing through balls or just fizzing it through the lines into more attacking players. Really impressive few months, and for Norwich to have signed him permanently for a reported 2.3 million quid, let's not get too far ahead of ourselves, because I'm sure that a full season will come with its own challenges. But if, as I suspect, Jacob Wright is already at starter level for Norwich City, will be starting for them next season as a 19-year-old English defensive midfielder, a number 6 of the type that we don't produce very much of, 2.3 million quid, is surely going to look like an absolute steal within, like a month or two of the new season starting, which I'm pretty excited about. George Preston have brought in Daniel Everson, popular former loanee, goalkeeper, will be their number 1 next season, replacing the departing Freddie Woodman. Also Jordan Thompson, sort of versatile squad player, coming on a free from Leeds. These are the sorts of deals that Preston have always done to try and build out a squad without a big budget at Championship level. I'm pretty excited to see Joshua Kwashi.
Nigel's son.
Nigel Kwashi's long-lost son with a slightly different spelled surname.
Yeah.
A 6'6" centre-back from Hoffenheim, who, as I understand, is both incredibly quick and both-footed. This feels like something from a TV show, from a film.
It's
Transformers.
Yeah, spent last season on a Grote Furt. Is that a good pronunciation?
Almost.
20-year-old who hasn't played that much football, certainly not at Hoffenheim. For a Southampton team coming down, looking to bounce back up under Will Still. It's interesting. It feels like either one of those where he's going to be really good, or we just might not see him play that much football. We'll see.
They're going to be playing a high line, I'm sure of that. And to have a 6'6" pace merchant, who apparently once he gets going is almost unstoppable. I'm pretty bloody excited about that. George is choking, he's so excited to see Joshua Kwashi, Southampton's first signing of the Will Still era, the return to the Championship era. It's a Watford signing that's caught your eye in the Championship.
Yes, Hector Kiprianu signed on a free from Peterborough. Firstly, this is a guy who's worth, market value-wise, £2, £3, £4 million this on a free transfer, so that alone is obviously a really good pickup. He's someone who's obviously ready for the step up to the Championship, a very technically sound, gifted holding midfield player. If they want to play a possession-based style, I think he's perfectly suited to it. They've obviously got a new manager in who we don't know a great deal about, but this just feels like a very obvious player ready to step up, who, even if he wasn't out of contract, will be getting a Championship move fairly soon, and they've capitalised on his contract situation. So for a lot of Watford's recruitment, you look at and you wonder, the wisdom of it, maybe, and you wonder where it's coming from. This just seems like a good bit of talent identification, and they've moved quickly to get hold of someone who's immediately comes in as a multi-million-pound asset who should improve what they got in that position of the pitch.
This comes into the category of don't overthink it, and I quite like that. Yep. In football transfers in EFL recruitment, don't overthink it. Just get Kiprianu in on a free. Should be a solid squad option at the very least, and could easily kick on. Zidane Inusa is the name of a Championship player who Swansea have signed from Hacken in the Allsvenskan.
Just choosing your players on names.
Pretty much. Names and player profile. We've had a Spanish-style English number 6, age 19, in Jacob Wright, who I'm really excited about for England pod purposes as much as NTT20 pod purposes. And now we've got a dribbly boy. And you know that I've always loved dribbly boys. You know that the 3-5-2 era in the Championship was a really dark couple of years for me, on and off the pitch. But Inusa, by all accounts, is incredibly quick, is very lively 1v1, taking on fullbacks, and works pretty hard defensively. And that's pretty much the prototype for what a lot of Championship teams want at the moment in their wide forwards. I think it tells us a lot about the way that Swansea are going to play, that now, as we record this, they've got Ronald, they've got Yom Ji-sung, they've brought in Inusa, they've still got Josh Ginelli, they've still got your man Bianchini as well. I think we know they're going to play with wide forwards, and a lot of their attacks are going to end out on the wings, and whether they end up as goals and chances or not a lot happening is going to depend on the quality of the 1v1 ability of the wide players. So for Inusa, I'm both excited about what his ceiling could be and what he could add, and if I'm honest, wincing a little bit at the reported fee of €6 million for a guy who's only had 26 starts in the Allsvenskan in his career so far, a few starts in the Spanish third and fourth tiers. It's a massive step up to play a Championship season on a technical but also on a physical and psychological level because of the workload and the schedule. So I'm not expecting fireworks from Inusa straight away, which makes me wonder whether Swansea actually have £5 million to be spending on a project player. It seems that they do, and along with Vidal, who's the midfielder that joins them, Melker Vidal from AAB in Denmark, they have signed some pretty exciting and interesting players, and I'll never be upset when a mid-ranking Championship team is trying to raise their level by being creative in recruitment and signing players from overseas. I think it makes sense if you can do it well. I think it's very difficult to do it well, but that's what Swansea are trying to do. That's the extent of the Championship signings so far, George. There's more in League One and League Two. Why don't we start with Huddersfield, because it's been quite a big week for them with the hiring of Lee Grant after a pretty extended period without a permanent head coach, a feeling of freshness, a rookie manager, and two fairly big name signings, I would suggest, for the level.
Yeah, I think the Lee Grant appointment was met with some maybe concern, the perception being that they wanted someone who had a bit more experience, but Grant is, as far as we know, very highly thought of as a coach. Marcus Harness comes in to join him, who obviously knows from his Ipswich days. Harness, obviously, a bit of a statement signing for a team in League One, someone who played a big part in Ipswich's promotion out of that league, and then a bit part maybe in their promotion to the Premier League too, but someone who should be a quality link player and creative outlet and goal scorer for them in League One. But it's Ryan Ledson that I'm maybe going to focus on here. Someone who, his energy and work rate is absolutely insane, and his love of a tackle is also extraordinary. He's only 27 years old, which seems strange because he's played a lot of first team football for someone who's been around for that long. At Preston, I think his time had come to an end there. He became always popular because of the way that he plays, but had become a bit of maybe a relic of previous not so successful sides, the idea being they had to improve in the middle of the park from a technical standpoint. But Ledson isn't a bad ball player. I think at League One level he should be able to influence games on the ball too. But for a side in Huddersfield who last season just seemed completely rudderless and fell away so quickly when things went wrong, to have certainly someone like Harness, but in particular someone like Ledson, who just will not allow standards to slip, who'll be a perfect player in the middle of the park to just drive Huddersfield forward, off the ball and on the ball too. I think it's a very smart signing and someone who realistically should have his best years as a player in front of him now.
Yeah, I want to talk about Max Power. He's back in English football after 2 years away, and he has signed for Bradford. This, I think, is a significant signing for Bradford, but it's also just interesting from a storytelling perspective. So Power left Wigan 2 years ago after they were relegated from the Championship amidst a lot of uncertainty, and he signed for Al Qadsiya, who are a second-tier Saudi side managed by Robbie Fowler at the time, which is a sentence that I'm pleased I get to say out loud. They started the season with 6 wins and 2 draws, flying. I think they were second in the table. Power played every minute and was captain, playing centre mid. And then Robbie Fowler got sacked, having not lost a game. Sacked and replaced by the Spaniard Michel, slightly sexier name. I think they had a Spanish sporting director who wanted to get his own man in. Fowler's out, and possibly coincidentally, or possibly not, I really genuinely don't know, Max Power, who you have to think, as someone also from the Liverpool area, might have been quite close with Robbie Fowler, played one more game, and then had groin, and he had 2 surgeries, missed the whole of the rest of the season. Al Qadsiya won promotion without him. He was still the club captain, and he was released at the end of a year there, having only played the first 8 games of the season. And then he pitched up about 8 games into the season in Denmark for AGF Aarhus, where he played
in the middle of our street.
Yeah, exactly, but not really in the middle of the park for them, because although that is where he played,
incredible sentence.
Although that is where he played when he did play, 18 appearances, not a single league start. So again, Power, part of a team last season outside of the UK, not a really big part of the team, to be quite honest with you, and now comes back to England. He's only 31. He's someone with loads of experience. He is considered a massive leader off the pitch, and he captains most teams that he plays for. The crucial detail here is that Richie Smallwood has been released by Bradford, and both positionally but also in terms of a leader and a potential captain, Power seems like a really obvious and pretty good replacement for Smallwood. If he's fit, if he's got past the injuries and the surgeries, he looks in great shape from a video that I found of a day in the life of him out in Aarhus. He looks in fantastic nick, and I think this might be quite a good pickup for Bradford. So that was one that I wanted to highlight as well. Burton have done a bit of business, turning Dylan Williams' loan permanent. He's obviously a sort of throwback from the Mark Robinson era, but did score a big goal for Burton towards the end of the season. Young left-sided player, could kick on again. And Fabio Tavares, another one they had on loan from Coventry, didn't make much of an impact. I think was injured for a portion of his spell at Burton, but someone who's always looked quite lively, like for Cov in little snatches off the bench or cup competitions, now gets a chance to really sort of kick on and start his senior career at a level below. Robbie Gotts has moved from Barrow to Doncaster. John Lee Yefeko's loan at Exeter has been made permanent. He's someone that made a great start to last season on loan from Rangers before picking up a really nasty injury, and I think hopefully he'll be back from that and can contribute to Exeter from the start of the season this time round. Mansfield will sign Ryan Sweeney and Regan Hendry. Classic Mansfield, Nigel Clough fare this. Experienced players, older, senior pros. Hendry very technical in midfield. Sweeney a big warrior at the back. Returns to Mansfield where he played previously, or maybe he played for Clough previously, I can't quite remember. And Northampton with a real feeling of freshness under Kevin Nolan. George, he's going young, signing Jack Perkins from Nottingham Forest for a fee. Somebody who's never played a senior league game before. Signing Kamari Swire.
Yeah.
Not Sawyer and not Dyer and not Dwyer, but Swire. On a free from West Ham.
It's also Kamare, not Kamari.
Kamare, like Damare.
Yeah.
Oh my God, great name. Nolan, I believe, knows him from his time with West Ham. And Jack Burrows, who's a sort of Coventry Youth Academy player who's never quite got past the fringes of Coventry's team, and a bit like, as I said, with Tavares, looking to kind of kickstart his senior career at Northampton Town. Argyle, back in League One. Argyle, managerless at the moment, but with a new recruitment team in place, even with Muslich out the door, they've done some early business.
Yeah, they have. Caleb Watts is one who's come in and swapped Exeter for Plymouth in a move that I think angered a lot of Exeter fans, as you can imagine, moving across Devon. But Jamie Patterson's the one I want to focus on. A player who's had a pretty bad 24-25 season, made the decision to move out to the MLS to play under Dean Smith, who managed him at Walsall when he was a kid, and it didn't go very well out at Charlotte. And he came back to his boyhood club, Coventry, and played a bit part role in their end of the season, scoring one massive goal towards the back end of the campaign. But he's 33 years old, and he's someone who, in terms of his playing style, I think shouldn't matter too much that he's a bit older. He's never relied on his pace necessarily. He's someone who's really good in tight areas and just brings that little bit of kind of championship quality, I guess, to an Argyle side who might need it next season. So Obviously, issues at Argyle in terms of the manager, with Miran Muslic presumably having okayed this deal, and now him having moved on to Schalke. But along with Jack McKenzie, who comes in, the left back from Aberdeen too, 3 early signings. I think in Watts and McKenzie, I'm not going to tend to see much of McKenzie. Watts is obviously someone who, when he plays, at Exeter does look very good. But in Patterson, I think you've got a player who should be able to, I think comes in as a proven known quantity, and maybe someone who, because he went away to the MLS, was accessible when maybe he wouldn't have been a year or so ago.
Lovely stuff. Jordan Gabriel has left Blackpool after, I think, 4 or 5 years where things just haven't gone that well, to be honest. Gabriel, someone who always was thought to have had a lot of potential. I'm not sure it's necessarily translated into consistent performances. He has shown bits and bobs to suggest that he could be a solid League One right back, maybe even Championship if he kicks on. He just hasn't really kicked on. I still don't think he's actually played, or rather started, 20 games yet in a league season in his career. So he moves to Port Vale from Blackpool in the search of redemption, I guess, under Darren Moore's tutelage. And then Kyrell Lisby is Peterborough's newest non-league attacker that they have brought in. Obviously, Con Clark and Kean Hayes came in last time out. Udo was signed from Rochdale after their relegation from League Two, so they love this sort of profile. Kyrell Lisby is a winger. He's been playing in non-league, had a particularly good FA Cup run with Cray Valley Wanderers a couple of years ago. He is the son of Kevin Lisby, former Charlton player among others. He has a twin brother that plays for Colchester called Kyrese. And the thing I'm most excited about with Kyrell Lisby, George, is that Kieran, who's on NTT20 squad and supports Oldham and therefore saw Kyrell Lisby play for Braintree in the National League this season, said he's one of the fastest players I've ever seen in the flesh.
Amazing.
And pace, something that defenders can do nothing about.
Foul them.
Foul them, if you can get to them. In League Two, we've got Barnet. And I'm pretty bloody excited to see how Barnet shape up in League Two next season. They've made 3 signings already. And this is quite refreshing for me because we've had some big dogs coming up, haven't we? Your Wrexhams, even your Chesterfields. Like Chesterfield signed like Carl McFadgen and loads of older dudes dropping down and some quite high-profile loanees and stuff like that. Barnet have just gone, you know what? We know the National League market really well because that's where we've come from. So let's sign the best National League free transfers that we can get our hands on. And that's in the form of Ryan Galvin and Adam Senior, both from Halifax. Galvin's a left-sided defender, Senior a centre-back, and Ollie Kensdale, who was on loan at Eastbourne last season. And all these guys have come in on a free, Barnet not breaking the bank. But I suspect, maybe I'm giving them too much credit, I suspect they've picked up players that they are confident can and will step up to League Two level and will just add a little bit of freshness to a Barnet side that picked up so many points last season, and we expect to go pretty well, as most teams that win the National League do next season. Barrow have picked up 2 players. Scott Smith from Wigan, 24 now, Smith, academy graduate, just never quite cracked it in the first team, drops down a level to try and establish himself. Energetic central midfield type. And then Innes Cameron, who's a big boy up top from Kilmarnock, sort of modern striker, doesn't have a great goal scoring record, does have some heft. That's what Adam Wing's going for. Reece Brown has rocked up at Crawley. He hasn't played for a club for the last 12 months since his release by Forest Green. But this is a guy who I think in the 2017-18 season was in League Two PFA Player of this Team of the Season. We know what he's got in his locker, but he's approaching 30, Reece Brown, and Scott Lindsay's going to have to basically try and coax that back out of him. And the way that Crawley play does give me some hope that we might start to see Brown back at his best. Ben Knight, young attacker who was a bit of a wonder kid, wasn't he, when Man City signed him from Ipswich age 16. Didn't work out at City, hasn't really worked out anywhere previously, and he's back home where he was born, Cambridge, to see if he can, get cracking. Bit of a theme developing, a lot of these guys who just really need to find a home and kickstart their career. Josh March, Harrogate striker, takes a lot of shots, hasn't scored a lot of goals, not a great combo. He joins Crewe and will hopefully have a better return for them next season. What else do we like here? George, you have got a pretty close eye on Milton Keynes.
Yes, I think Nathaniel Mendez-Lang is probably the number one deal for me so far of the whole window. It's frankly absurd that he's going to be playing League Two football next season. Someone who was the best player for Derby in their promotion out of League One a couple of seasons ago under MK Dons manager Paul Warne. He is a massive source of creativity, of goals. His powerful running down the wing is, it's basically what Paul Warne needs, like strong, like physically strong runners who are direct and have the quality to impact games. I think he will score a lot of goals for next season. He's 33 years old, but he doesn't play like he's 33 years old. He still has that pace and athleticism.
What age would you say he plays like he is?
26. He had a
great age.
You know, he's playing Championship football last season and was a part of their Championship squad that stayed up. I guess he wants to play with Warren again. We know that MK Dons have a lot of money to spend this year, and in the same way that McGoldrick's been a standout player in the league for the last 2 seasons with Notts County, I think Mendes-Lang will just be too good.
Seb, Palmer, Holden. SPH 50. He is a young striker that has just signed a 3-year contract with Gillingham after his release by Bristol City, where he has spent the entirety of his life so far. I think he's been there since he was like 8. And does anything really happen before you're 8? I don't think so. 3-year deal at Gills really intrigues me because, I mean, with a player like this, it's very, very easy to focus on the best case scenario, and that's what I'm doing with Palmer Holden. I liked what I saw with him at Newport, his first loan. He scored maybe like 7, 8, 9 goals, but showed real presence up top and was, 19 at the time. He's just spent the last year in Dundee, just getting a bit more grit in his system, playing up in Scotland. I think he scored 5 goals. He wasn't an absolutely crucial part of their team, but I still think showed some development, particularly physically, as you'd expect at the age that he is. He's just a real modern prototype of a League One, League Two striker that, if they eventually start scoring goals, then guess what? They interest Championship clubs and beyond. Because he's big, he is strong, he's quite quick once he gets going, and he's really hard-working as well. He scores goals attacking crosses, he scores goals running in behind. I think he's probably at the point where maybe playing as part of a front two with someone a bit more experienced around him might be the best option. But I hope Gillingham are rewarded for taking what is a bit of a risk, by which I mean the 3-year contract. Not many teams in League Two are offering 3-year contracts. I really hope this sort of bravery is rewarded, because if he does get it right, and if he does score 14 goals next season as a 21-year-old with the size profile that he has, he'll be worth a lot of money and he'll still have 2 years left on his contract. That's what I want to see from League Two clubs. So Seb Palmer Holden, one that really stands out for me. Harrogate have lost quite a lot already this summer, but they've added Jack Evans from Halifax, who've been picked off by League Two clubs this summer, and Lewis Cass from Grimsby, the versatile defender. The big news for Harrogate really was Anthony O'Connor signing a new deal. He will stay at the heart of that Harrogate defence, crucial for them. Nathan Smith, an eye-catching signing for Tranmere, released by Port Vale, his boyhood club after a decade there. Started almost every game for Vale in the second half of last season, where they were practically unbeatable. So I think that's got to be a good sign, and joins back up with Andy Crosby, his former gaffer and coach at Vale with Tranmere. Shrews have made 2 signings with Anderson, Tom Anderson that is, from Doncaster Rovers, and Sam Clucas from Lincoln. I can't quite tell if these are like just, good, solid, experienced pros, a big header, like aerially dominant centre-back, and a Sam Clucas that must have racked up about 50 million quid's worth of transfer value in his career. I don't know if these are shrewd from Shrews or whether they're a bit like, come on lads, is this the right thing to be doing?
Yeah, Clucas is interesting because I think Appleton will want players in the middle of the park who always will, technically very good, and in Clucas you've got that, but he's had to take a big risk in order to get him in because he's not played a lot of football recently. He's obviously a bit older. I guess it's a calculated risk where if it comes off, they'll have one of the best technical players in the whole division, but it also wouldn't surprise me if Clucas doesn't play very many minutes.
Tom Nichols has signed permanently for from Mansfield at Swindon. He was there in the second half of last season, and I really like this signing because Tom Nichols has always been an attacking player that doesn't score very many goals. That's like the first thing that everyone knows about Tom Nichols. But he's such a good player in other ways, and particularly in like really aesthetically pleasing ways, with his tight control, his match intelligence, his creativity, that some managers have really loved him and some managers haven't really wanted much to do with him. Ian Holloway loves him, signed him, put him straight in the team. He was a key player for Swindon in the second half of last season as they flew up the table. And Holloway, I just love these sorts of quotes where he's like, I don't really care what the stats say, I don't really care what the data says. Like, I know that when Tom Nichols plays for my team, the team plays better because of what he's bringing to the table, not necessarily on the ball, but he is also a creative passer and very technically sound. What's interesting for me is that he played 4 games as a proper centre mid, like a number 6, not even like a number 8 or a number 10. And I just wonder if Nichols, who's 31, maybe the last few years of his career, he might drop a little bit deeper and be a sort of double pivot, which would be quite exciting and kind of funky. They've also signed Darren Oldacre, who is also that sort of midfielder from Chesterfield, who's been a pretty key player for Chesterfield over the last 3 years, and I think should settle in pretty nicely to Swindon with Kilkenny, Oldacre, maybe Nichols if he's dropping deeper and playing midfield. they're going to have another really technical midfield base, and I think we can expect Swindon to be an entertaining team next season. That's for sure. Nathan Baxter signed for Watford from Bolton. Just chucking in a Championship transfer there, right at the end of the League Two segment. Not sure how that ended up at the bottom of the Google Doc. Finally, George, perhaps the name on this list that I would synonymise most with my favourite phrase, box office.
Harry McKirdy has gone from Bromley, where he spent the second half of last season, to Crawley to play under Scott Lindsay, who he played under when Ben Garner was Swindon manager and Lindsay was assistant, and that was obviously by far and away the best season of McKirdy's career. Crawley have a bit of a knack out of getting quite a lot out of players, so you're not sure how much they're going to get out of. And in McKirdy, you've got a guy who we don't know if he still retains the ability that we saw in that season at Swindon. Obviously, he is a bit of a live wire in terms of his application and the way that he carries himself. And clearly, I would say Lindsay seems like the one person who has been part of the management team who's been able to manage him so far. So fingers crossed we see the return of Harry McKirdy scoring goals, causing chaos and upsetting away fans every week.
That's every transfer that's been completed in the EFL so far early on in the window.